All right, here we go. We got OG Big U in the building.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming in, man.
The show all the time, man.
Okay, so this is your first time on Vlad TV, so I just kind of want to get into your whole story and your whole history, because you have a very interesting and respected history, especially in Los Angeles.
Right.
So, what part of LA did you actually grow up in?
South Central LA. Born on 81st and Hoover. Raised on which we now call the 60s in Arlington and Slauson, for most of my life.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were born in the 60s?
Yeah, born in 66.
Okay. So you grew up, you were a kid in the 70s.
Right.
Describe LA in your area during that time.
It was kind of like new, because we was moving to the west side of LA, so the west side of LA was kind of just developing, you know what I mean, like for blacks being able to come to LA, and we kind of looked like we was leaving we weren't really on the east side being on Hoover, but it was like that black flight going west. So it was new, it was young. When we moved from the Hoovers to the hood, it was kind of like the first time gangs was coming west at the rate we was coming. And I think Cripping came in '69. My uncle then was original OG Crips. So when we moved to the hood, it was different. And then for us, it was a family element, because my mother had 10 brothers and sisters, and we had like a big South connection. My mother was one sister of she was 3 girls and 10 boys.
Wow.
So, and they all come from like a real tight knit. So, and they all came from like this aggressive fight nature. So I can remember my uncles fighting the LAPD in the front yard. I can remember us, having picnics at Van Ness Park. And then it was kind of like, real crazy. Well, for me, it was crazy because my uncle then was like really like big. They were selling weed, real big weed dealers. And sell the weed, use the cocaine.
So during that time, you're talking about the early 70s.
Yeah.
That's when Tookie Williams and Raymond Washington came together. That was like, what, 71, I think?
See, that's kind of like before my time, and it's
Yeah.
like a quagmire with how that's told. With Tookie and Raymond Washington, that was like, them dudes like 10 years older than us. Mm-hmm. And it's a difference between what they was doing and what eventually morphed in what is today. Like, they the original Crips and where the name came from. What we ended up doing after '79 was what we call gang banging. And that was where everything had changed.
So did you know Tookie or Raymond?
I met Tookie in prison. I met Tookie in the county jail.
Ah, okay.
We was all in 1750 together.
Okay.
He came down to fight an appeal for a child custody, I think. And we was actually next door in 1750. I had some cases inside prison, and I had to go get locked. I got locked up, so me and him was right behind each other.
So originally, how did the Rolling 60s actually form?
With and everybody always get upset, but it's different. It's like different dudes how the name came about it. But it was like the permission was supposed to be given to Babyface, and Babyface got the permission to start a fraction of Crips. So somewhere around about, I don't want to be quoted on this, but somewhere around about 70, probably about 73, about 71, 72, they started letting people form their own gangs. And it's like you kind of had to get permission to start your own Crip fraction. And that's where the homies went to try to do their own Crip fraction. And that birthed the 60s. And that came about 73, 74.
Okay. And at what point did you actually join?
I actually never joined.
Aha. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
You never joined.
I'm I'm one of them guys who just here.
Just around.
Put it like this, it ain't on you, sometimes it's in you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You kind of like, you walk a certain life and you live a certain life and you from a certain area. I like to tell dudes, I ain't from nowhere, I am there. That's what I am. You know what I mean? Like, it's where it's in your heart.
So you're in this area and the 80s come around.
Yeah.
And with the 80s comes crack.
Mm-hmm.
You go from, a place where suddenly you got this drug introduced and it has massive effects in the neighborhood on every level, financially, in terms of addicts, the destruction to the family, to the home, prisons, violence, everything else like that. Do you clearly remember, like right when crack hit that area?
Yeah, I remember when crack, but it didn't hit us like that in the 80s early, because it was crazy for me because I always knew drugs. I knew, like I said, my family come from that. I was one of the cats who was introduced to the selling and making money of drugs at an early age. So let me take you back to 84, no, let me say 79, 80, it was pretty much PCP, Angel Dust, and it was a pill generation, kind of like it is right now. Mm-hmm. We didn't see cocaine come until the first thing they was doing was ether basing with it. It was always snorting it and doing whatever they did with it, shooting it. We seen ether base come first. And that was kind of like 81, 82, we used to hear about like these old cats doing this other thing with the cocaine. They're not tooting it or shooting it. They doing something called ether basing. And they was getting it off the mirror and trying to cook it, and then that morphed into crack cocaine. And that was kind of like 82. And like 82, you started seeing people not leaving the house and focusing on just like messing with this rock.
Yeah, it was called Ready Rock in the beginning.
It was a lot of different names. And so when it actually hit was like 83. And I came back home 84. And we went from being able to just, and it changed it because two things happened major. The influx of guns and a different kind of guns. And then
like the automatics and
the automatics,
like that, yeah.
Because we hadn't even seen automatics. We weren't even having no automatics then. And especially like what we was inflamed by the 9mm from the movie that came from New York, was King of New York. When Lawrence Fishburne had the 9mm in the King of New York, we was like, oh, that what the, you know what I mean? Because we come from the Clint Eastwood era, the pistols and the 4.5 and the magnums. So when crack came, all the different movies came that influenced the culture at the same time. So it was kind of like a two-way street. And but when the cocaine hit, it made it so we had more money than we ever had. We had availability and access to money.
Right, because you didn't really have millionaires in that area before then.
No, well, we kind of like, we always was known as like the so-called wealthy Crips or whatever, because in our area we live in houses, like the projects in certain parts of Compton and Watts and all that. They in tenements and projects. In our area is houses. So in our area, which is called the 60s, it's different. It's like you may have somebody that it's generational. You'll have people who've been going to school or knew each other from age 5 years old because their mothers own these houses and they have ownership instead of living in apartments, and they may be living in these apartments 5 years, 3 years, and they moving out and transitioning in and out these apartments. Ours was different. You know what I mean? Like we lived on the block, Arlington. If you listen to one of the songs, it's called It's a Struggle, you're gonna hear us talk about where it was 10 of us that lived on the same block. And it was more than us that lived on the same block, but we all lived up Arlington. And so that's where we was called the Arlington Gang. But the Arlington Gang is actually the first block of Arlington. It's Arlington, then the 2nd Ave, 3rd Ave, 4th Ave, which is the Rollin 60s. So we was the Arlington boys on the Rollin 60s. So as we got older, and this is, I was gonna explain that to you. So as we got older, we would go places and dudes would say, where y'all from? Because no matter what, you had to be from somewhere in LA. And we from Arlington. And like, what is that? Okay. But we all knew martial arts. You're talking about, it was 7 first cousins. We all studied martial arts. That was the one thing our family made us do. No matter what you did, you had to go do martial arts. You had to go to karate school. That's where you got discipline at. If you got F's in school, that's where you got, you got, everything happened at the karate school for us with our family. So when we would go places, dudes would ask me where I'm from. I'm telling them Arlington. Immediately, what is that? Oh, we're going to show you where that. Where that's at, what street? Now we tell them where it's at. Oh, y'all from 60s. All right, yeah, fuck it. You got a problem with the 60s? And so we just take it down.
So you say you got out in 84?
No, I got out in 2004.
No, but originally you said...
I came back home from Chicago. I got kicked out of the state of California in 82.
82.
Yeah, they kicked me out and told me I couldn't come back until...
Wait, they kicked you out of the state of California completely?
Yeah, they used to do that. It was either go to the Army or you had to leave.
Oh, they don't have rules like that anymore?
No, they just now starting back to do it.
Okay.
Now they be on the verge of like I guess with this conflicts, they offering youngsters now that's in that's going to Sister Jordan Hall the chance to go to YA. But with us back then, it was a lot of stuff that had happened, and I was on the run for about a year and a half. And so when they finally caught up with me, they couldn't find me guilty of a lot of stuff, so they only would release me to my father, and he was in Chicago, and that was my first time meeting him.
Okay. Like, as a kid, were you getting arrested at all, or not really?
No.
Okay, that started to come later.
That started coming later. I mean, I got arrested a couple of times for robberies, but I didn't do no time, no juvenile time.
Okay. So you come back to your neighborhood in 84, and crack hits South Central. What do you start doing at that point?
Shoot, I can remember the first day I came back. I just came to the block on 10th Avenue. All the homies was there, and everybody had thousands in their pockets. Like, I'm talking about everybody had thousands. And I'm looking like, so y'all doing it just from this? And it was basically like, shit, get in and get your check. The homies pulling up in foreign whips and ragtop Mustangs is all over the block. And it was really get in and figure it out.
All that is great in the beginning. The money starts coming, and then the law starts to catch up with you.
Yeah. Then, I mean, well, really, if you look back at it in hindsight, it was more like that started coming, the conflict with the homies started coming, the inside conflict, the bantering, the mistrust kicked in. It was a lot of stuff came with cocaine. When cocaine came, it was overwhelming because we were getting money and we didn't understand how it was affecting us. You know, we went from, and it was two eras with me. It was the era before I left and went to jail again in 2000. Got back out in 2000, in 87, and then went to Minnesota, and that's really kind of like when I really started getting a lot of money, and then I fell again in 91. But up until that era, it was kind of like the Boys in the Hood, like kind of like really like the Boys in the Hood movie. I think that's the closest I can say that's out there that can depict it. But the drugs, to me, it just kind of like destroyed the fabric of what we were. And it was devastating to me because you really can only trust certain people. It became small, like your pocket became small with your homeboys.
There was a situation that happened with football player Kermit Alexander.
Oh yeah, with Lil Fee.
So apparently there was a football player, I think he played for the 49ers at one point and a few other teams. And a home invasion happened. His mother, sister, and two nephews were killed.
Yeah.
And it was the wrong house.
Supposedly.
Supposedly it was two houses down.
To my knowledge, I wasn't even in town yet.
Yeah. And it was pinned on the Rollin 60s.
On Loke, yeah.
And that kind of turned a microscope onto the Rolling 60s at that point. And it started all types of investigations and everything else like that. So you weren't around during that time?
No, I was in Chicago.
Okay, but you saw the after effects.
Yeah, I saw
of all
it.
that happened.
I came home like shortly after that. And it was it was crazy. I mean, but really, to be honest with you, like, it was one of them cases where they had to put it on somebody.
Yeah.
It wasn't never a confession. It was never nobody actually said these guys did it. And they used the technology to say that Loke did it, which is who I call Loke Lil Fee on Taekwon Cox. They said that they had fingerprints from him off a weapon that was supposed to be recovered. Mm-hmm. But now, even today, what is this? Down 40 years later, 30 years later, they starting to question all the evidence. First of all, you couldn't even do fingerprints back then. And the gun that they so-called recovered, they never got it from him. They got it from somebody else. So it's kind of like you built the case. And I think Horses, which is on Burns, was convicted in a separate trial, and he didn't have nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? But it was something that happened, and I don't have no problem with talking about it because I feel like they got a raw deal.
Yeah, it was a lot easier to fake evidence back then, and to
what we see now.
There was no cameras, there was no video cameras, there was no nothing. There's no forensic evidence. There's no DNA evidence. You could scare someone into confessing whatever.
No, and neither one of them confessed to nothing.
Oh, really? So it wasn't even that?
Nah, nobody confessed.
It was all
to nothing.
circumstantial.
It was all circumstantial. Yeah. It was all basically they came up with something, and at the time you got to remember it was crack cocaine. The neighborhood was moving and growing, and you had if you were an officer or you were a police station, you got to put the case on somebody. I don't know what the mindset was on that. But,
I mean, it's a professional football player.
Yeah.
So the whole country's looking at the situation.
Yeah. And I was 17. I was 17, we was baby. Loke was 17, young, when he caught the case. And so, but dealing with all that, and I think his case come up right now. They in review right now.
You've been shot before?
Yeah, 7 different times. No.
7 different occasions?
Yeah.
Okay.
My first time I was 14.
Can you talk about any of those times?
15. Yeah, I mean, shoot, I was the one that got shot. No. Nah, I mean, it ain't nothing to it. I was my first time we was on some bull crap, and
at 14.
At 14, we was in the Five Deuces, and I was doing some stuff and ended up getting shot first time, and I think I shot in the shoulder the first time, then second time, right here in this, no. First time was in this shoulder, the second time was in this shoulder, and right here in this arm. My homeboy shot me in the finger right here. On
Your friend shot you in the finger?
Yeah.
Doing what?
We thought our house was gonna get raided.
Okay.
This is the early 80s, 86, 85. I had an apartment on 10th Avenue, and we used to serve out the bars. And so what we did was we had bars inside the house, we had bar door inside the door, and bars on both of the windows, and we had a bar door on the inside. So we used to serve, and so when the police pull up, by the time they pull up the first bars, they still got to get inside the second bars. So we thinking the police is coming, but they hitting the house next to our apartment. We throw all the guns out the window. We on the 3rd floor, and then he going to get the guns out the window, and I'm pointing like, look, right there. And I guess when he pulled it, that was the time I got shot in the finger. That shit hurted the most. Then shot in the legs 2 times, shot in these I shot both legs. And it just, perils of the streets of LA.
Well, each one of those, well, maybe not the finger part, but each one of those other shootings could have ended your life.
Yeah.
A little bit over, a couple degrees over this way.
Especially this one.
Yeah.
Right here.
That could have hit your heart.
Yeah, no, it hit me right here, right on the,
yeah.
Right here.
I mean,
this was the only time I really was tripping because my mother, when I woke up, I'm looking at my mother, and she in the hospital, she like, when is this gonna stop? I'm like, whenever they get these handcuffs off me.
So every time you got shot, you never thought to actually quit and say, let me just start over somewhere else?
We was ignorant. It was pretty much we was our mindset then was we're in a war. We trying to win. We want everybody to know who we are. You're gonna know who our name is. You're gonna remember us, and it's like being in the army. You know what I mean? This is a part of it's our badge.
I read Monster Cody's book as
Right.
well. You just mentioned it. And I remember he said something interesting in that book. He said that, you know, when he was gangbanging, if an enemy rolled up on his block, they would sit there and shoot it out, regardless of how outnumbered they were.
Mm-hmm.
One cop would roll up and everybody would scatter.
Crazy, ain't it? Crazy.
Doesn't matter if you're 100 deep on that block.
And I think that comes from I know it comes from slavery. It comes from the representation of the cops being the overseers, and the mindset of us not having a love or respect for our people. Because you got to first gain the love and respect for your own kind, or gain the love and respect for something that you will live and die for. So from the training of you have to respect this group as opposed to this group. And it's the same one. They've all got guns and they all have, but the mentality of it's the cops you got to run, it takes the training, you know what I mean? And that's actually what I see it being. Not being it because it's death, it's certain death, or it's the possibility of death regardless. If it's the cop roll up shooting or it's somebody else roll up shooting. It's still the possibility of death, but in our mind, in our community, we've been trained to just run, just always see them as the overseers. Because you can see the same thing where they could pull up in a European community and these white boys ain't gonna run at all. Like, so what? You know, like,
I got lawyers.
got lawyers, or the mentality is not to run.
Yeah.
Where they don't see them as a paramilitary group who is out to really dominate you. And then because whenever you're dominated by a group, they have to show that. And that's when you see these killings of unarmed people, and they're getting away with it because they have to show that they have the ability to kill you and off you. And that goes back years. These killings ain't new.
Like, what was your worst experience with police?
When you want to start.
Just give me the highlights.
First time I got beat up by Shepherd on 2nd Avenue. I had to probably been, I wasn't even in the streets yet. I was coming home with my books and the homies had just ran through and we had this little cut and I think they was chasing maybe Key Rock, or I'm can't remember who they was chasing, but we had this little cut. This is where we can run from the police and we could run certain ways, and we had little booby traps. And if you didn't know when to jump or when to run through the circle, your ass was gonna be flipping on your face. And so we was sitting there and we could look down the little side through the houses and wait, and there they go. Right when they got to the spot, flipped up and hit right into the wall. And when he got out, Shepherd came up and he just beat us all up, lined us up on the gate, and went to work on us.
With the baton?
Nah, he didn't hit us with no baton, but
Fists?
Yeah. And so that was like, all right.
And that type of thing continued through over the years?
Yeah, that was over the years. I mean,
so you would just get beat up by the police every
it
so
was
often.
it was they thing. They could do what they want to. You know, it was a different era back then.
Right, there was no body cams.
No. And then and I was telling my nephew about the thing they called the flashlight therapy in the county jail back in the days. It was really like
beat you with flashlights?
They was killing dudes. It was like, you know, really you could die. And then going in the county jail, and at that time back then was more, you had to worry more about the police than you did about other inmates.
The LA riots happened. And you talked about how on the gang side it actually unified things.
Yeah.
Can you describe that?
I was gone.
You were gone.
I was gone again. I had, when I left, I maybe been in jail maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then I had got charged, well, some dudes had stabbed us in police while I was in jail. And they ended up charging me with that too. But nothing happened. I ain't had nothing to do with that.
Okay. But the riots themselves kind of unified the Crips and
It
Bloods
did.
to a certain
It
degree.
unified the Crips and the Bloods to a certain degree. And that was something that, of course, the overseers couldn't have happen. So then it was things put in place that, kind of broke that union up. But it was good for a moment. It was good for people to see that they could get together. I was on the phone with, when they was, I think the police had came through and did a drive-by, actually did a drive-by on the homies.
The police did a drive-by.
Yeah.
Wow.
You gotta remember, they had took over the streets, barricaded the streets, and the streets was like locked down, and they was coming through popping. I think it was something like, it might be a research, a couple hundred people died after that, or during that time.
Wow. By police.
Well, I wouldn't say by police, but just whatever,
Whatever, yeah. So at what point do you actually do your longest bid?
From 1991 to 2004.
Okay, because you originally got 23 years?
Originally sentenced 56 years.
56 years.
They was only able to sentence me to 23.
And you ended up doing 13?
Ended up doing 13.
So what did you get 56 years for?
For nothing. They said it was possessive of sales. It was robbery. Because what I used to do was I would come with a bag. And when I come with the bag, when they came with the bag, we would take the bag. So basically that's what it was. They never came with no drugs. When it was an undercover police officer, we was set up and ended up with a robbery, kidnap, and assault. Because they said that I had assaulted the police officer or something, you know what I mean? And they called kidnap by moving him for any amount of feet. So, and it ended up getting dropped down to whatever have you. But.
Well, you're how old at the time in 91?
22, 23.
You were a 23-year-old being told that you're going to get 56 years in prison. You were going to get out at 78.
When they fly in cars.
How does a 22-year-old really work that out in their head that they're not going to get out until they're an old man?
This was it's two parts of that, because so many of the homies had already been sentenced and they was getting life. You have to kind of look at it like, well, at least I'm not getting life, and I'm doing half time.
56 years though is.
It is different. It's a different way you have to rationalize it.
Okay.
Then you're looking at it like this is a part of life that we chose. So it's like you're gonna soldier up or you're gonna fold. In our life, in the life we live in South Central LA and we live in the streets, it's kind of like that's what you know what you're signing up for.
Okay.
It ain't no way out of it because you chose this.
Well, and you sort of know that it's coming.
You know it's coming eventually.
Yeah.
I was one of them cats that knew I was eventually gonna do some time.
Okay.
I mean, I knew I was moving, but when I got the time, my mentality was different. I had already cut my hair off. I'd already changed. I was on some different. I was not totally different, but my relationship to my people was different, and it was growing. I was studying Islam, but I really didn't have no visible means of maintaining the lifestyle I had set for myself. You know what I mean? I had started dealing with Jim Brown, Minister Farrakhan. They actually said that in my sentencing transcripts, that the reason why they was giving me the max time was because I was taking Crips to meet Minister Farrakhan. And that was one of my aggravating circumstances.
They gave you time for bringing people to meet Farrakhan?
You have mitigating circumstances and aggravating circumstances when you get sentenced after you're found guilty. The district attorney submits the aggravating. And your attorney for your side submits the mitigating circumstances on why the judge should give you the max time and why the judge should give you the least amount of time. One of the aggravating circumstances submitted by the district attorney and the FBI who was following us at the time was that I was taking gang members to meet Minister Farrakhan and introducing them to Islam.
Which isn't illegal.
But it was to them.
It was frowned upon.
It was in my. I'm telling you, it's in my transcript.
That's
if you
crazy.
pull my sentencing transcript, you will see it.
That's crazy. So then you go to prison and you spend 13 years there.
Right.
Well, what started to really change in your mentality as the years started to drag on?
Well, like I said, my mentality had already been changed as far as, my mentality towards black people had already changed, and towards my community had already changed. It was just that being young, still being so young, and still being connected, it was the sit down only just affirmed where I needed to get, where I needed to go. But I feel like in my life I was already on my way there. My hatred for just doing stuff to people that looked like me or anybody had already kind of waned.
I mean, was there a certain level of, I'm selling drugs and I'm making money off these drugs to help support myself and my family, but the destruction of what I'm doing has long-ranging effects? And was there a level of regret?
I read Malcolm X's autobiography in maybe 90, and I was on a mission to take some work somewhere else from one place to another place, and I read the autobiography, and I cut my hair off. I flew my wife and my son, my oldest son, to Chicago, and I stayed in Chicago for maybe 3-4 months. And then I came back to LA, and my mind said I didn't want to sell drugs to our people no more. And that's what made me, but I had amassed like maybe $30,000, $40,000 a month in bills. My two little brothers in private school, paying for I think I had like 3 apartments. I had property I just bought in Minnesota, and I had all kind of stuff out here. And so it was kind of like, having those bills. So how you gonna eat? I can't just, and money just draining out. So the only thing I knew, still being young, 22, 21, 22, well, I picked up the gun. Well, let me go rob. I know how to do this good. And I feel like I was robbing from the drug dealers, and then I could, remove it. But it still was a young man's ignorance still at the same time.
I interviewed X-Rated recently in prison. Are you familiar with his story? X-Rated was a rapper out of Sacramento in the early 90s. He was a Crip, and him and his friends, they were all teenagers at the time, were involved in a home invasion where there was like 2 rival gang members, allegedly, that they were trying to get. They kicked the door down and they ended up shooting the mother of the 2 kids. And she was like a mother of like 5 and a grandmother of like 2, and it was, and then he was the first rapper that they kind of used the lyrics of his songs against him in court, because there was like a verse about kicking down doors, shooting mamas, and there was a gun that he was pointing at his head on his album cover that matched the type of gun that was used in the murder, even though we don't know whether it was the gun or not. But essentially, it was like the first rapper to get convicted
Off his lyrics?
Off his lyrics and his album.
How long ago was this?
This was like 91, 92. It was a big story in Sacramento.
No, I was still in jail.
Yeah.
I was on the way to jail.
And he's been in jail ever since. He got life. So he's been in jail 30 years. And he had sort of a different point of view about gangs. And I brought this up when I interviewed Trey D. I'm going to play it for you and just get your take on it.
A gang is a parasitic organism that lives and grows and feeds on or within another organism without regard for the survival of its host, right? And that's the definition of a parasite.
I don't see it that way.
And he went on to describe how the little homie really wants to be the big homie and wants to, take over that position. And the way he kind of described it was as a parasitic organism. And but he's been off the street for 30-something years.
He might be bitter. I mean, but I look at it like this: like everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
If you take my experience with like say my experience from prison, what was prison to me, and was prison so bad that I feared for my life. I feared going. I would tell on everybody because of my experience. What was freedom to me? What was my relationship with my woman to me? What was my what everything, how it affected you is how you view it. And then the moment that you do the interview, it bespeaks on how you react to it. Me, I can say this. There have been problems with me and my homeboys and my family, but there's no way do I see us as parasites. I understand because I understand a little bit about the world that every organization has problems. That's the reason why the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church came from the Catholic Church. That's the reason why Martin Luther left the church and they went to war. That's the reason why we see Baptists, Pentecostals, and all these, because they couldn't get along. So if you ask me, I would say that the gang culture is right on the line of these different churches. You gotta, if a Jehovah Witness walk up to my house, my mama used to at one time go crazy, close the door and feel like the house was being invaded, and we looking like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And so what's the difference? And I mean, at one time, because I study history, the churches actually were killing each other.
Oh yeah,
1500-year war between the Protestants and the Catholic Church.
Well, I mean, you could also look at the Dark Ages and the Inquisition.
Yeah.
And what they would do.
And that's still going on though. We can't do that one because we still living in that time right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the way they would convert people.
Yeah.
And the type of tortures and the creative aspect of what they would do to try to convert
still
people.
doing it.
Yeah.
You're still doing it right now. So I mean, we kind of ain't actually moved from that. But yeah. So I wouldn't say that. I would say this, that I think it's the mentality of the people who so-called call themselves OGs and these different people or different gangs or whatever have you. If your mentality is you call yourself an OG, but you still sitting on a corner and you just getting high, smoking and drinking, and then you got this youngster who has a vision, or he has his own car, his own house, he's doing this, he's working that. Why would I be listening to you? That's natural. I may not even have respect for you after I reach a certain age. So as young people, we look up to everybody. Because at some point we actually start physically looking up to you. Then once I get your size and I start experiencing some of the things and I start seeing that you're not elevating and you can't continue to elevate me either, then I start to lose respect for you. I look at myself compared to certain dudes who call themselves OGs, right? And I say that I continue to morph. I continue to try to offer young people something. I continue to offer young people to say that you can't be mad at the system. You can't say that you can't do it. I kind of like don't give them that excuse.
You get out of prison, and then you start getting involved in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
And Kurupt was the first artist that you started working with?
Kurupt I was messing with in 1990.
Yeah, so that was the first artist?
First artist, Kurupt was
Okay.
the first artist.
Was he affiliated with Death Row yet or no?
No, it wasn't no Death Row.
Okay.
It probably would never even been a Death Row if I'd have been home.
Okay.
Fact.
So Kurupt is originally from Philly, right?
Right.
So, but he moves out and
Moves out.
he's in the 60s, he was living in the 60s area. And you had never managed artists or done anything music-wise until then.
Right.
So how did it start off with you managing Kurupt?
Lamont Broomfield had Kurupt sign. And me and Lamont Broomfield grew up. It was me, Lamont Broomfield, and Battle Cat. We was like best friends.
Battle Cat, the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all went from like 59, and I think Battle Cat didn't go to 59, I think Battle Cat, we met at Horse Man. So Battle Cat, me, Lamont Broomfield, and Battle Cat was like partners. And then Battle Cat was always on the drums in the school, and I'd come pick him up in school. We go walk to to nutrition and all that, just to like the 3 years we was there. So I went to jail, came out, went to another town, to DeSoto, and got a bag. The mock come with this kid. Oh, and Tone Tobin was his garage. So they ended up making music, and Tone like, man, come over here, we got this artist we need your help with. And I come over there, it's Kurupt. And they making Kurupt rap, like, they point at anything, he rapping, he spitting it immediately, which was amazing. I'm like, then he in there recording. It was my first time ever even seeing somebody record and make music, was at Broomfield. So I think, it was at Tone Tobin. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month later, I'm still in the streets. The little homies is coming, they want to go get down, and I'm helping them out, and I see Kurupt in the car. And I'm like, what you doing in here? Ain't you the rapper? And he like, yeah. And I'm like, man, get out the car.
You pulled him out the car.
Yeah, I'm like, you got a whole nother purpose. Like, and I know he Lamont Broomfield rapper. And I'm like, you don't need to go with the homies. And I'm like, I pulled him out the car, and I tell him, man, get on back around into the garage where you supposed to be at. And then the little homies took off on their little thing, I guess. And I seen Kurupt maybe 2 weeks later, and I'm telling Lamont, I'm like, man, you better get your boy. Your boy, he going down the wrong road. He like, nah, man, I'm cool, big homie, I didn't go. And I'm like, all right, well, if you doing this. So we just was vibing in the studio. Then we get to do the paperwork. I started Delicious Entertainment. That was the name of the group back then, my company. I had already just signed a deal for a male and female exotic dance company. And it was under Delicious Entertainment. My wife wouldn't get the paperwork. So then we was doing the music part. And unfortunately, I was gone.
Did you ever see the Kurupt interview that I did?
Nah.
Let me play it for you. I asked Kurupt, I don't know if you remember when Kendrick had that King of New York line?
When he said he did Kurupt's line. On the,
he did Kurupt's line.
Yeah.
No one had actually put those pieces together, though.
That it was Kurupt.
That it was Kurupt.
Yeah, I did.
Because Talib Kweli mentioned it to me, so I brought it up to Kurupt. So when I interviewed Talib Kweli, this was I'm looking it up right now, it was August of 2013, and this got 500,000 views on YouTube. He said that Kendrick was quoting you in the in his verse, in the control verse.
It's my killer. Sleeper cell.
You called yourself the King of New York in a previous song, and when he said it, a lot of people didn't realize it.
King of New York. What is the King of New York? What did Kurupt mean?
You tell me.
By King of New York.
What was the whole verse?
Incredible.
Hold on, maybe I can look it up.
You want mine or Kendrick's?
Your verse.
I'm important like the Pope. I'm the King of New York. I'm live from South Central. I'm a Muslim on pork. That means I'm the fucking worst. And that's all it meant. I'm the fucking worst. I'm important like the Pope. I'm important, nigga. I'm the King of New York. His name was Frank White. You notice how since somebody from the West Coast will say they're the king of fucking New York, they automatically assume we're disrespecting New York.
Right.
I'm sick of that shit. We don't have a problem with you, New York. Stop it, my nigga. King of New York is a fucking movie. It's a fucking movie. Biggie called himself Frank fucking White. Who is Frank White?
Christopher Walken.
Wrong. He's the fucking King of New York. It's a fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
We don't want your city, your country, your town. We know what we from Los Angeles, we from Compton, nigga, Watts, Inglewood, nigga, we are the West Coast. Why the fuck would we want to be where you at, nigga? We don't like your fucking streets. We like ours, cuz. Ours. We don't have a problem with you guys, my nigga. We don't have a problem with y'all, cuz. Sorry about that. I had to get that out.
The greatest ending ever. You've never seen that?
No, I never seen it.
Okay. You know Kurupt very well.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
He told it right. He was talking about a movie. Like our movies influenced them, their movies influenced me. I just quoted, before he even said it, I just quoted King of New York.
Yeah.
When Lawrence Fishburne had them
Yeah,
two tools.
the guns, yeah.
Oh, shit. We was all the King of New York. But it was out of respect. And it wasn't even about New York. It was really about that movie. Like, it was really about Frank White.
Yeah.
When we called ourselves the King of New York. And then, see, to us, King of New York don't mean King of New York. It mean the King of the NY, because to us, it's young neighborhoods.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? And that's why you see a lot of dudes from neighborhood wear the NY hat. It don't mean New York at all. If you see that Yankee hat in LA, it means neighborhood.
Okay. So you start working with Kurupt, and then Death Row starts to form,
Right.
and the Dog Pound and everything else like that. How did you kind of maneuver Kurupt into that whole situation?
Well, I didn't. I didn't maneuver him into it because it was kind of like he got into it, and then all the homies was mad.
What
So
do you
I
mean?
was in. I just got found guilty. I was in the reception center, and my wife came to see me, and she was like, "Kurupt wants you to call because the homies is mad at him about the being on death row." And I'm like, "Well, shit, of course you know I can't call." So I went from I was transitioning, and then when you get to the pen, you got to go through the not using the phone, get one phone call a month, so all that, and then just probably like a year or so, I'm looking at him on death row, and then the homies is mad about him saying gangster, and then Broomfield and them is mad, and so it was just a lot of, anger amongst the homies, and then Kurupt is like, "Well, my big brother's Big U," and I'm like, "Well, stall the kid out," and it kind of went from there. But I always say Kurupt is the hardest dude from the hood because he branded the hood when he wasn't even with the hood, and that was hard. And he traveled the country and took it where nobody else had ever took it, and he did it by himself for a lot of time.
Oh, he was the only one that was talking
Yeah,
about.
he was kind of like he was by himself. He was with a bunch of Long Beach dudes,
Right.
representing, his city. And he came back to do a solo project. He did it right on Crenshaw and Slauson. And because I related to that because I never lived in the '60s. I always lived everywhere else. My mother I lived in the Hoovers. I lived in different lanes. I lived in different hoods. So I understood how it felt not to be on the block all the time. I had to catch the bus to the hood to be from the hood. I knew what it felt like to walk to the liquor store in somebody else's neighborhood and dudes know who you are and know where you from, and you got to answer these questions every single day. I know what that
Oh,
feels
so
like.
you were getting asked where you're from.
Man,
every day.
I lived in the Hoovers, then I lived in different lanes. I lived all in places. I went to different schools. It wasn't easy being me.
Yeah.
Man, I'm catching the bus to the hood all the time.
So were you out when Death Row started to build up and Kurupt started?
Not at all.
You were in jail the whole
Wouldn't
time.
have never happened when I had no death row.
What do you mean?
I love Suge to death, but he definitely wouldn't have been moving around LA like that. Because in LA at the time, you wasn't saying blood. You wasn't wearing no red at that time. That wasn't happening. And you definitely weren't moving like that without major situations. You know what I mean? And I think what was able to give rise to Suge, to the growth in Suge to move like he was the riots. The unity from the riots and dudes not tripping and wanting to gang bang on each other, that's really what gave rise to Death Row. Because when that happened, more people started moving in like they was moving, but nah.
So you get out what year?
2004,
By that time, death row was already
on its way down.
on its way out.
It was on its way
essentially.
down.
Yeah.
I remember where I was when Tupac got killed. I was in Salinas Valley, 180 level 4, and I remember when the officer came and told me, he said, your homeboys killed Tupac. I'm like, my homeboys killed Tupac? And what you mean? But the only thing he could correlate is said whoever killed Tupac had S hats on. And they got into it with these dudes, and they saw it automatically in LA, that gold S hat, the Seattle Mariner hat, meant the homies. And I called the homies, like, man, and I had a cell phone at the time. Like, man, we ain't had nothing to do with that. That was woo, you know what I mean, whatever happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, all right. And but that was the first time I heard when Tupac had got killed.
Did you know Tupac at all?
Nah, I never met him.
No relationship.
I know his music though.
Yeah.
I know his sound.
Yeah.
I love Tupac though.
Yeah. We all did.
Yeah.
Did you hear the Keef D confession? You didn't hear Keef D?
Is that the bodyguard?
No, Keef D was Orlando Anderson's uncle.
Would he confess to killing Tupac?
Well, he confessed that Orlando killed Tupac.
Oh.
You want to hear it?
Nah.
Okay.
No, I don't want to hear no confession.
He was given a deal, and this was
Keef D was?
Yeah, Keef D.
Oh, so he snitched? Nah, I don't want to hear shit.
Yeah. So the deal essentially was they had caught him with a bunch of PCP, and they allowed him to say what he knew about Tupac's murder in exchange for them dropping all those charges. And the way the deal was set up, whatever he said, as long as it wasn't proven to be false, it couldn't be used against him directly to indict him. And at the time, essentially everyone outside of him was dead. That was in that car.
Oh.
Orlando was already dead at the time,
Oh.
Everyone else in the
so
car.
he told him a dead man.
essentially.
Oh, different.
Yeah, Orlando had
Yeah,
already
you can
been.
let me hear it then.
Okay.
Yeah, he told him a dead man. King, what you gonna go dig him up and put him on trial? Did they go to Vegas and put it down, or did it just happen like they said it happened?
Well, the way he described it was, Baby Lane, Orlando got jumped. They regrouped with the rest of the
squad.
the South Side guys, and one of the guys had a gun, and they went looking for him. They went to Club 662 originally, but they weren't there yet. And then they were driving around, and then some girls were like, Tupac, and they saw Suge's car with Tupac in it, and Orlando took the gun and opened fire.
Yeah, cracking. Wow.
And yeah.
That's how it happened.
Well, that's the way he described it.
Well, it kind of sounded like how it happened.
Yeah. Everyone I've talked to has pretty much
Said that's not how it happened?
no. They all told me the same story, even before I heard the Keef.
That's how it happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I heard it happen too.
Yeah. That's the
But
story.
when did he get that?
I mean, this happened a few years ago, but the tapes recently got published. I actually interviewed Greg Kading, who was the head.
That's the cop?
That's the cop that got him to confess. And yeah, I mean, I've interviewed everybody around. I interviewed.
How you do a deal? How did they even come up with that? We gonna give you immunity if you tell us.
Well, they were trying to solve the Tupac murder. It had been a cold case now for, it was like 10 years or 15 years by that point.
Interesting.
So you get out, death row is kind of in decline, but first of all, you and Harry O had a relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Harry was kind of like the first person to ever really give me books on the music industry. And him and BJ had their little thing going. But Harry was the first one to, cause I like to say I got my my book education on music from Harry O. And my actual application of it from Suge Knight.
Yeah, and Harry O was the one who originally funded death row.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah, however they go.
However, it
They
worked
had
out.
something to do with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
But I love Harry O though, man. Harry O is a different kind of, but I love Suge too though. Like Harry-O is a different kind of guy. Harry-O is it's crazy. Like they the same people, but they different. And because I was able to look on the outside and look at both of them and meet one at one time and the other one. Harry-O was I'm gonna get it done no matter what. Let's go get this done and find a way to get it done, get it financed. Woo. That's Harry-O. Harry-O is the one, you can go in a board meeting, he gonna take over the room. I kind of patted myself more like Harry-O, like, because he wants to understand where you coming from. Suge is more of the, I got it, I was in the right place at the right time, we're gonna do it this way and mini muck you and woo woo woo. Suge more on the guerrilla side, but he has it's a purpose to it. It's not like, unfortunately I can't agree with people when they say Suge is a bad person, because a lot of these people are so naive. I mean, so they so backstabbing and you can't really trust them. I think that's what made Suge become who he is.
Right, because he would collect on deals that people weren't paying up on.
Yeah. I mean, and that don't make you a bad person, but he would take on a lot of issues for other people.
Yeah.
But Harry-O was more of I think I'm more like Harry-O because I'll find a way to make the deal happen. And if the deal don't happen, I know you got to come back to me later. You're going to eventually see me again. I'm not going to hunt you. I'm not going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think about Suge's current situation?
I think he got he's probably going to do about 4 more calendars at the most.
3 more years?
At the most.
And then get out?
Yeah, he'd be home. He'd definitely be home.
I mean, he has a good shot based on the situation.
Yeah, he'd be home.
When you look at it, the only thing is that he's now on his 15th lawyer. And I believe he has a public defendant now.
It actually works for you. The public is all he really needs. You know what I mean? You only need to be, to be found guilty for murder and for first-degree murder, you need to have, he can't even be charged with first-degree murder. So that
manslaughter, basically.
Yeah, he could only be charged with manslaughter. He couldn't even with vehicle manslaughter. So that takes all of the death and life off of it.
Okay, so that's not a third strike.
No, it would. I mean, because for him to get the third strike, and they really moving that, they really trying to do away with that. But now they bringing other laws back. But I don't think he in place that they're gonna be able to wash him up. And him going through these different lawyers and all the different, investigators is kind of works in his favor.
There was a story on the Daily Beast that I guess the prosecutors in Suge's case essentially talked about a long history of Suge intimidating people, and they tried to tie you into that.
Yeah.
You're aware of this?
Yeah, I seen it.
Okay. What is your take on that?
I mean, they reaching. You reaching. I do a whole lot of stuff, man. I mean, I do that, I do kids. What they can do is for sure, only one thing is for certain, is that the gang violence in Los Angeles, California is down to the lowest it's been since 1967, 66. And that's in part because Big U was home.
Right.
You know what I mean? I got to be one of the only dudes or one of the biggest forces of people who came from where we came from that has been propagating violence, stopping the violence amongst our people and not tooting my horn.
Well, you actually work with the mayor's office.
Yeah, I have a contract with the mayor's
You have a
office.
grant
Right.
from the mayor's office and a staff of people that go out and try to essentially deal with situations that are starting to escalate.
Right. Yeah, we do that. We've been successful. I mean, like I said, what we do is not new. It's a grant that was written by Dianne Feinstein maybe 20-something years ago, over $1 billion that comes into the city that deals with gang intervention. What they did was they wanted to go get certain OGs or certain people who had influence in certain neighborhoods to get them to become a part of the program, to go out and reach out to young people and to try to stop the rumors or the assumption of who may have done something where gang violence is coming from. So with that, we're able to, I hired dudes from all the different gangs that surround the Rollin 60s, and stop a lot of the conflicts.
Right, including the Mexican gangs also.
Including the Mexican gangs. Yeah, we had to have employees from every set. And so why it had an immediate effect is because once you start hiring the VNGs, the Rollin 60s and the 40s and all the different gangs is right in the immediate area in 77s, it was a hot zone. When we started being able to hire them and you got people concentrating on conflicts, it took the violence down. And it continues to take the violence down. It's actually a platform that really should be implemented across the country if people want to see their city safe. Like, let me say this one thing. Crenshaw District is so safe now that they moving the white people back in. You know what I mean? They selling it on that. Because really, I see more gang violence in the way it is now in the cities that started adopting gangs.
Right, because we put up an interview, Arian Foster did an interview with Snoop.
Arian Foster.
He's a football player, ex-football player, and he does a podcast now. And he did an interview with Snoop, and he was talking about,
as an OG of the game, you have to like step back and be like, holy shit, yo, there's Crips in New York. There's Crips in Boston.
Everywhere.
There's Crips in Florida. Like,
everywhere.
That shit is insane. Y'all started
in
that
Vietnam,
shit.
nigga.
There's a Crips in Vietnam?
Yes,
I didn't
nigga.
know that shit.
A whole set. They started in my city in Long Beach.
That's insane.
The whole country cripping.
It's crazy.
you know, being originally from that area, when you saw all this start to spread, you started seeing Bloods in Louisiana and you know, Bloods in New York.
Bloods
and,
everywhere.
You know, Crips, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Crips in Little Rock.
Right.
And that whole kind of phenomenon. Like, what is your take on that?
I see it's a culture. It's what people is adopting. I don't have a problem with it, to be honest with you, but I do have a problem with. I have a problem with us not or people not morphing into something better. Somebody asked me, do I feel like the neighborhoods would be worse or be better off if gangs weren't in them? I say this: if the gangs mature into men, and it's not about the violence, the drugs, and the buffoonery, then you have an organization that can help your community. It's really about the people making the decisions in the community. If your mentality is not about helping your community and cleaning your community and being a sign and beacon light in your community, then of course you should be removed. But it's about, like me for instance, right? I don't have no tattoos. I'm not a gang member, I'm a community member.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm for the people in our community. I would like to see the program that I have implemented in every community because it's been successful. What we do with the kids, what we do with the homies that's coming home from prison, offering them jobs, helping them do stuff, is you know, you can say what we used to be, but you can say now as men we make decisions that are productive to our community. So
You used to manage Nipsey Hussle.
right.
Nipsey had a really interesting perspective. He did an interview. I'm not sure where it was exactly, but he talked about an incident that he was somehow involved in. It was like some shootout had happened at like a gas station, I guess. Yes. And he came home and like his mother or grandmother said, "Oh, were you involved in that?" He said, "Oh, no, I wasn't." But they had video footage of the whole thing. And he said he saw over the next few weeks all the homies started getting arrested and everything else like that. And he realized that at that point, the way he had been doing things is no longer going to work because of the cameras and because of the level of surveillance. And he said something interesting. He said that the older homies who never had these cameras and this level of evidence that could be used against you, we're guiding the younger generation in a direction that was unintentionally going in the wrong place because they just didn't know. So you're taking advice from the older generation, but now you have all this new technology that's working against you. And he realized that at that point he needs to sort of switch up his mentality.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I don't know where he said, I don't know where he was going with it, but I can agree that different areas and different people have. So it's like, it's a bunch of dudes that's OGs. Like, it's crazy. But because of where it's structured, it's not me, because of where it is, there's no real structure. But yeah, you would, to even go through the stuff that we went through when we was younger, before the cell phones and these cameras on these blocks, and get away with it.
Right. You could get away with damn near anything back in the day.
It's
And,
ridiculous.
I mean, if you think about, you even take it back 100 years, where you could shoot someone and move to the next town over,
Change your name.
change your name, shave your beard, and it was over. You would never
it's
get
different
caught,
now.
and then fingerprints, then DNA, then video cameras everywhere, and cell phones.
That don't stop people. I mean,
You don't think it slows people down a little bit?
when you mad, you mad.
Yeah.
If you upset and you on your thing, you mad because you going.
Yeah.
Now, it may stop that dude who's not really serious about it, but it's not gonna stop somebody who, if they going, they going. And they really ain't caring in that moment about no cameras, and I've seen it happen.
There was some sort of situation that happened, some sort of shootout with you, Nipsey, LAPD, something.
No, that was what was that? About 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't no shooting. It wasn't no shooting. It was where the police was shooting.
Yeah.
And it was a family dispute. You know what I mean? And that's what happened. Families had disputes. You know what I mean? And that's my little brother. You know what I'm saying? I love him to death. We just did the whole little tour. But I mean, it was like any and everybody else. Sometimes you have a dispute and you got to get understanding. We come from a place where that happens. You know what I mean? And like I said, if he got a problem, I got a problem. And if I got a problem, he definitely gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, shit, you might hear about me and my sons having problems, or me and my kids, me and my wife. It's the same thing.
How many kids do you have?
5.
You have 5 kids. And I remember you mentioned that you're waiting for one of your sons to go to college.
No, he's in college.
He's in college already.
He's in college.
Okay,
yeah,
it was an older interview.
He's
then.
at Reno, Nevada.
I feel like you don't want your kids to follow in your footsteps.
No, definitely. My motivation for purposely trying to get this gang violence to the point to where it's none is my kids, my sons. I have sons who are at the age, who are at that target age, and when I came home, I definitely wanted to be a part of the solution and getting LA to where it is right now today. You know what I mean? And my motivation was a selfish motivation because I have sons. And I don't never want to see my sons laying in no casket.
Was there a level, you could tell your kids whatever you want to tell them, but they reach a certain age and they're going to have their own,
And with me, most people know my kids, know my sons. They aggressive, they in the streets. But it was the sons that I was gone for. Like, I was gone 13 years. So my 2 boys was 13 years without a father.
Yeah.
And then my last 2 kids are 13 years with a father. So they're a lot different than the other 2. So when I was gone for 13 years, then my last 3 years and 9 months I did in the shoot. So I was 3 years and 9 months straight in the hole. And that was like no communication with my sons. So they grew up hearing the stories of Big U.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the legend of Big U and getting shot, taking the guns, and shot multiple times. And they grew up with that. And I didn't know the effect of it, but I didn't want them to come visit me while I was in the hole. Because it was only like, you had to drive 3 hours, you only get a 15-minute visit, and then you got to drive 3 hours back. So I didn't want my wife to bring my sons to go through that, and then you only in the glass. So how they gonna take turns? So I didn't want to put them through that. So I came home in 2004, but I only had been on the main line 21 days before I was released. And that was the time they got to meet me. And so it was a transition, me coming home and not coming home the person they had been hearing about. You know what I mean? They had heard about this street dude, and I guess all the newspaper articles and whatever had you, Big U, this, and he did this, and he did that. And when I come home, I'm not actually the person they had been hearing about. I'm a lot different. I'm the opposite, where you could probably just see twerks of he could be this guy, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a difference to them.
You have a nonprofit and you sent over 150 kids to college?
No,
No?
more than that.
More than that, my bad.
Way more than that.
Hundreds.
Yeah, we got way more than that. No, we have more than that. We have a lot more than that.
Well, and then you're involved in Snoop's football league as well?
Yeah, we have a team in Snoop's league.
Got it.
Snoop has 18 different. Well, let me say chapters. He has 18 different chapters. We're one of the chapters of Snoop's league.
Got it.
And Snoop used to run one of his own chapters in his league of his 18.
Mm-hmm. Well, you had talked about, when talking about some of the work you're doing now, you mentioned that's your route to heaven.
Yeah. I'm trying to get into heaven. You know what I mean?
So you feel that some of the stuff you've done in the past you have to make up for?
No, I know it.
You know it.
I want to balance. I don't want to be remembered for being this negative force. You know what I mean? I don't want to live my life and the only thing you can remember about Big U is he was this, he was that, he was this, he was that. You know what I mean? He fought all these different cases. He did this to people. I feel like if on the day of Yama Kiyama, when I want to be able to say that I did right. I want to be able to say that whatever we had a part of, I did right. And I feel like in 2018, with the gangs and the murders and all that down in LA, that I'm getting there. You know what I mean? And if we can get it all the way down to where, because if it's low as it's been since 1966, and Crippin started in 1969, then put that on Big U. You know what I mean? Like, let me get that.
Less violence since there was Crippin.
Since 1969. If we down, and what happened was it was purposely done with Nipsey. You got to credit the movement, the Nipsey movement in the beginning with what we was doing, because it wasn't about a color. We purposely was moving with the red and the blue, doing songs.
Right, because I remember clearly, like in the 90s, hearing that LA artists just would not work together just because of the gang alliances.
Right.
You may like DJ Quick's beat, but where you're from, you cannot associate with that blood set. You can't be in the same studio together. You can't do this, you can't do that. You look at these days, YG works with everybody. Nipsey works with everybody.
I feel like, now let me explain the difference between, because people did do things together, but it wasn't the Rolling 60s though. See, and then it goes to being like, you gotta remember when Nipsey came out, he the first artist and the only artist ever to never come out and claim a city.
He claimed the set.
He claimed Long Beach, he claimed the set. And he claimed one of the most violent sets on records. So when we start moving, I used to purposely watch all our videos, make sure. I used to tell Steve, no, that video can't go out because in the back of there, got somebody set crossed out. And that video, no, you can't do this. And we used to purposely, like, make sure we wasn't dissing people, but representing the turf.
Right. And Nipsey would wear red in his videos.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, you can wear what you want to wear. You know what I mean? Because I knew that it would send a message to LA. And once we was able to kill the color line, that bull effect, you see red, you got to target, you got to attack it, you got to go at it. It would start making people be able to move. And so right now you see Crips and Bloods together. It's no danger to affiliation. And now they like when if you want to move, you want to go out with us, man, you can't be tripping on nobody, because we're gonna be around these different guys. We're gonna be around this, and put that on me. Let me get that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can say that my 15 years of freedom, I would like that to be my call. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I was able because I've been in this fight. You know what I mean? I've been at these tables with these different gangs and these different mayors, all these different police departments, and sit down and try to figure out, well, no, you can't just lock people up. We're not trying, but I want that. You know what I mean? I want to be able to say, you know, I was instrumental in helping doing that.
Absolutely. Now, from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When a rapper loses his chain in LA, Big U is one of the first people that they call
They should. I mean, I'm probably not.
You're the metal detector of Los Angeles, essentially.
I've been instrumental in helping people get their chains back over the years, and that's only because a lot of dudes have a little respect for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that ain't easy. It's not easy. Sometimes you can get it back, and sometimes you can't. You know what I mean?
So there's been situations where it's like
It's different situations. It's like
can't get it
somebody
back.
might pull up and they don't, and you just not. He already sold it, or it's not nobody we connected directly to. But for the most part, most of the young people in LA have a great deal of respect for me, and they see the work that I do.
Well, I also feel like when people get into some sort of issue, sometimes unintentionally, like the Cardi B issue. Like from what I understand, when Cardi B was out here, you were with her.
Nah.
Not at all? Okay, well, my
I
mistake.
went with her. I actually was dealing. I had a deal with the club that she was going with, and we still, because that's like we already deal with them before.
Okay.
With Ace of Diamonds, AOD. So as you already know, my homies already run that.
Okay.
So that's something that we already.
So it had nothing to do with that particular situation.
It was that situation, but it wasn't. Like I wasn't definitely like on her post on her team at all.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, cause but speaking on that, I was vocal in saying I still don't understand why,
Right. She wore a blue jacket and she called it flu
I seen
instead
that,
of blue.
and she said flu, but I mean, it's some things I don't say, some things people don't say. You know what I mean? But they went crazy on her because she on top of the chain right now.
100%.
You know what I mean? But it's people do it every single day. Like my nephew, you know what I'm saying? I'm Joe Moses' godfather. Joe
Okay.
Moses got a whole song where he say back bracken? Back bracken, right? Now guess what? Because Joe Moses is official, born and raised in South Central LA, born and raised in VNG, can't nobody take that from me, been through every YA prison and all that. Guess what the next youngster from somewhere out of state gonna say? He gonna say the same thing. But because Cardi B is Cardi B, and I mean, like I say this all the time, I can understand our family being offended by that because that's on the highest level. But me, myself, personally, I didn't see it. So if I don't see it, I don't react to it.
Tekashi came to LA.
Buffoonery.
You feel it's buffoonery.
I believe that's where hip hop is right now. It's just, it ain't about the music no more. It's not about the music, it's about
The attention.
the attention.
Yeah.
You know, the people who signing these artists right now today, the labels to sign these artists is signing somebody. First thing they want to know is what your numbers look like. So how much buffoonery have you done or can you do to get people to go push the like button or push the follow button? Okay, I just slapped this dude. I just did this on dude. Make your page private. Now they're gonna have to subscribe or they're gonna have to do this. And that's all it is. Look at all of the top artists that's out right now. It's nothing about their music. It's about the shock value. It's about
Certain artists. I mean, there's Kendrick, of course.
no. We ain't. That's an artist.
Yeah.
Kendrick ain't nowhere near. We ain't even gonna put Kendrick
Yeah.
or J. Cole's or
Yeah.
none of these dudes in the category that we talking about with this buffoonery at all. We got to be clear with that. Kendrick ain't. None of the rappers who really rapping about something. It's different. I remember when I first heard the first rap song, Rapper Delight, or what I can remember.
Yeah.
79, 78, Horseman Middle School. We all on the blacktop rapping the lyrics. We all coming out. Everybody know the lyrics and everybody know what part of it. You can start, I can stop, and we're gonna repeat the whole song all the way around. I remember when people knew lyrics to songs. You don't know lyrics to these songs. You don't even hear the songs that come out no more.
I mean,
It's number one on billboards and nobody heard it.
well, I mean,
What's the little girl name? This 14-year-old girl?
Bad Baby. Yeah, she had a gold single now. To be fair, though, Tekashi had like 5 songs on the charts at one point. And
Why? Why?
I think his music is pretty good.
This is the thing. No, I love what's the name?
Gummo.
Is that the one we said? It's one of his songs I like. It's one of the songs I like. But my point is this: I'm not talking about his music. I'm talking about look at his effect. Look at him. When you look at this kid right now, What do you see? Rainbow hair,
Yeah.
a bunch of tattoos,
Yeah.
and all the stuff in his mouth.
Yeah.
If I'm passing down the timeline and I don't know who he is, and I'm a grandmother or grandfather, when I get past that, I'm gonna say, what is this? Shock value.
Yeah.
So you're gonna give it a listen to a clip because you just need to see what is this. Now, if I hear Dear Mama, I'm gonna listen to Dear Mama.
Yeah.
Because if I hear it and I want to hear what he said, I'm gonna listen to Dear Mama because it resonates with me. I still listen to Dear Mama and some of Tupac's songs, Brenda Had a Baby, to this day, because those songs ride with me. Now you tell me, what are you gonna listen to from those 5 songs that's on Billboard, whatever? Which one of them songs you gonna listen to 5 years from now?
Dear Mama.
And I mean, that's for anybody. You got kids coming out right now disrespecting Tupac. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, and that's shock value.
Yeah. 03 Greedo just did it.
Still don't get it.
He's, I think, Grape Street, something like that.
It don't matter. I don't care what street you from.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get it. No disrespect to nobody else, but I'm not gonna get it. How
Right.
could you disrespect somebody that's dead? 1, 2, he's a legend in music. 3, he from the West Coast. You know what I mean? He no matter where he started from, and
Yeah.
period, point blank.
But there was, I guess, a rumor that 6ix9ine had reached out to you for protection or something like that.
No, it was a situation between him and Trippie Redd.
Yeah.
Him and Trippie Redd had a situation going on, and well, not I said no, but him and Trippie Redd had something going on. And at the time, I just left New York with Nipsey, and I talked to his squad about them trying to squash their little beef because I know the guy who owns the label, and I know the security was with them. So that's kind of a long story, but I talked to both of them, both sides.
Did it work?
It worked for a second.
The time being?
You know, I mean, but yeah, I talked to both of them. I talked to both of their sides.
Yeah. I mean, there's the whole concept of checking in, and I think Nipsey did an interview on The Breakfast Club, and he described it as friendly extortion.
Well, I don't know about that, but I check in. I don't know where Nip was going because Nip ain't never got to check in with anybody.
Right. I think
hustlers all over the world.
Not checking in with people you know, but you know how some people say you got to check in if you come to my city, and they don't actually know you yet.
I never said that.
Yeah, I'm not saying you did.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying that's the concept.
The people got to check in. I don't believe it like that. Like I see, cause this is my opinion. Like this, if you a rapper, right, and you gonna move to LA, which you gonna eventually move to LA, and you know our culture out here. If you don't have an affiliation, then you're just dumb. Cause eventually it's gonna check you in.
Why not just get regular security?
Cause that's what they gonna be. Affiliated with somebody too.
I mean, not always. I mean, I have security that isn't gang affiliated.
Maybe. You think they ain't? And then, you know, you got let me say this to you like this. Almost everybody in LA is affiliated to somebody or cousin or friend of somebody.
Right.
The driver of your car. You know what I mean? Let me give you this. You got people who come out here and they become affiliated. Even if they don't be affiliated through they soon to be future baby mama, a cousin who's a friend, or the person who they buy weed from, or the person who they go to the gym with, or somebody's doing something. Put like this, when you go to the Beverly Center, I'm going to get a call that such in the Beverly Center. And somebody may not even know that, just guess who I just seen? And it happens all the time all over LA. You pop in a restaurant. Somebody might say they seen such and such and don't even be intention on doing it, but they might be telling somebody else. I just seen, like, every time I go somewhere, somebody gonna call Steve and tell Steve they seen me. No matter where I'm at in the city or in the country, Steve gonna get a call from somebody say, hey, Steve called me and say, bro, you in Atlanta? Yeah. I already know what it was. Somebody seen me and they told me. It happens in LA. If you're not affiliated with somebody, guess what? It only a matter of time. Now, guess what happens to 6ix9ine? Let me give you 6ix9ine. 7 years from now, he gonna still be 6ix9ine, the kid who was disrespectful. The money is gone now. The labels have moved on to other projects. Guess what happens?
People still gonna remember what he said.
People gonna still remember. Ain't you the kid, the king of New York? Oh man, I was on some stuff back then. Oh no. Same thing happened with me. If we talking about gangbanging, what do gangbanging have? I mean that you are affiliated forever, right? Same thing with disrespect, being disrespectful to a city.
Right, because he had similar problems in Houston, or not Houston, but
Yeah, Houston, Texas.
Texas, Austin, Texas, with Jay Prince's sons. Yeah, I mean, I hope nothing happens.
I don't
Ultimately,
think it's gonna be. I personally don't feel like nobody should lose their life. Nobody should.
Yeah.
I personally don't think it should go that far. It would be ridiculous if it did. I mean, honestly, I'm being brutally honest. Like, it would be ridiculous to take words to violence, especially words to killing. Like, that would be the most ignorant thing in anybody's mind.
Right.
Like, to take that to that level.
Even though you've seen it your whole life.
I seen him. Well, no. Actually, the violence with us is actually not just B words. It comes from real violence.
Right, but I've seen so many situations where a couple words. You know, I interviewed a rapper, Chi Ali, who got into it with his baby mother's brother, and they started arguing, and the brother said to suck his dick. You know, invited him to his dick, and he pulled out a gun and killed him.
He basically told me like I was dead, and he ended up telling me you could suck my dick.
Over the phone?
Over the phone. I go to the Avenue, like if you know Throgs, like it's one like strip on what is that, Dewey? That's Dewey, right? Yeah. I go to Dewey because I know he's always out there. That's where he hustles at one night. So I see him on Dewey. We exchange a few words. You know, he's talking some gangster shit. I'm talking some gangster shit.
Did he threaten you at that point?
It happened so fast. I don't know that he threatened me. You know, he turned around and just was talking shit. Like when I ran up on him, he was like, "What?" Like, "Well, yeah, you know." I backed out and clapped him. I remember running, leaving the scene. I remember getting rid of the gun. And I remember thinking, damn, like, yo, I fucked my life up.
Well, that was probably a little bit more than that. You probably history building up to that.
Yeah,
but
no, there was, but those words is what triggered.
Words are vibrations. You know what I mean? Words
Yeah.
are vibrations that trigger emotions in hearts, and it's just like a punch too. So if you go that way, you got a point. But I definitely don't. I would probably look at somebody like really stupid for, you know, going to gun violence or violence over what this kid is saying and doing.
Yeah.
I don't, and that's just being honest. Like, I could see the kid right now and be like, you know, what? I'm not finna do nothing. He could walk in this room right now, pound his hand, shake his hand, and keep on going where I'm going.
You know, a lot of organizations, when you look at history, they start out one way. They start out as gangs, they start out as crews or whatever else, and they elevate over time. You look at the Kennedys, his family were bootleggers. Mm-hmm. They're essentially gangsters.
Yeah.
You know, you're not selling illegal substance without some violence to go along with it, and probably some killing to go along with it. If you were to say what your ultimate wish is for Crips, regardless of how it started, where do you wish that it would go? Do you wish at one point it would turn political, where you know, certain political parties could help get elected from, when you look at communities where Crip communities are considered
Negative.
Like Beverly Hills and so forth?
I believe that it's time for elevation.
Yeah.
It's time for people to stop it's time for us to let people label us. And it's time for us to move in different directions. Like I put a post up today talking about running for city council.
You're running for city council?
I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
And
That's what's up.
But that's the natural elevation. Though.
Yeah.
And I read this book by Naeem Akbar called Visions for Black Men. And it's not about, I don't want to be condensed, nobody continue to condense us down to Crips and Bloods. We need to be condensed, we need to be men. We need to be looked at as men. Because if you take the connotation of Crips and Blood, the country has already put a name on that. So now when you say you a Crip or a Blood, you already fighting behind
the history of it all.
A wall,
Yeah.
you know, that's this high. And that's unfair in its first place. So now you already setting yourself behind, you know, a wall. You got to climb the wall, then compete with everybody else. But I believe that men, us as men, who come from an environment, should have the opportunity to go forward and do other things that are positive in our nature. And our nature being a growing and to becoming men who are responsible for their family, to deal with politics, to deal with the earth, to deal with all the different things that affect us. Because if you say you're a Crip or Blood, that don't mean that you don't bleed. That don't mean that you don't gotta eat. That don't mean that your food don't come from some food source, your water don't. That don't mean that you sitting somewhere else different than everybody else. That means that when you get 40 and 50, you start thinking differently. At 12 and 13, what I did, I don't want to be the only person in the room judged for what I did when I was 14 years old. Mm-hmm. While you don't get judged by what you did when you was 14 years old.
Right. I actually interviewed Shaka Senghor. He's an author. He's from Detroit. He killed someone during like a drug deal gone bad when he was, I think, 19 or 18. Went to prison, wrote a best-selling book about his experience. He was on Oprah, and now he's, you know, and his thing is that you should not be judged by your worst moment. You know,
Right.
The rest of your life should not be judged by your worst moment, depending on what that moment is. And he actually killed somebody. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he feels remorseful
Right.
over that situation. So yeah, man, I think it's dope how you've evolved and continue to evolve and taken the experience that kind of got you to this point. And you know, this is the one thing I've always said. I said that there's no such thing as a successful person who isn't constantly reading.
Right.
And people will bring up Floyd Mayweather can't read. And it's like, okay, you're not Floyd Mayweather. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not an athlete of that caliber.
Exactly.
Let's just keep it 100. And the fact that you read so much,
All the time. Still.
you know, me too. I do audiobooks myself.
Okay.
I'm reading a book a week.
Gotcha.
You know, like clockwork. I think that's very important because you can't just get this type of knowledge off of a YouTube video or a blog or whatever else. And I think it's important for people to kind of get that because every book changes you.
Right, it does. I remember when I first started reading in prison, I think the scary thing was when I started reading in prison, it made me feel disconnected. Like, I think you say, when you asked me earlier about what changed in me, it was in prison, it made me realize, and I hate to say it like this, it made me realize how uninformed we as a people are. Like, I was in prison with a bunch of black men and Hispanics and whites. And the more you read, the more you distance yourself from the crowd, because you start to realizing, like, the way we thinking is not correct. So then you got to still deal with your people, but you start feeling a disconnect. And when you start to growing and starting to want to see other things and visualize the world, because books start opening up the world to me.
Yeah.
Like before I started reading, I had never been to Europe, I had never been to Africa, I had never been to these different places, right? And I still haven't, but I've been there through books.
Yeah, I mean, when I interviewed Freeway Ricky Ross, when he went to prison, he didn't know how to read.
Never saw any reason why I should read. I didn't see where it was gonna fit into my world.
Okay.
You know, if a person don't understand, it's like trying to get a person to walk around with an empty bottle in their pocket. They're not gonna do it. For what? You know, why would I walk around with this, making my pants tight and taking up space? I could put something that I'm going to use.
Okay.
And that's the way I looked at reading.
But once you got to prison, then you realized that if you don't learn how to read, you're going to be in there forever.
Yeah.
And then you started learning how to read.
Gradually.
He was illiterate.
Right.
Moving hundreds of millions of dollars worth of money in cocaine, but that changed once he went to prison, and he actually figured out how to beat his own case.
Right. Yeah.
By reading.
Yeah. Me and Rick did time in that's actually where I met Freeway Rick. I met him at 4800.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what it is. Big U. Appreciate you telling your story, man.
All the time.
It was a hell of a story.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's going to inspire a lot of people.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I know so. I know so. That's what it is.
Appreciate it.